Welcome to Trench Talk. We about to dive into all the gang-related news, stories, and history. So you know the drill, like comment, share, and smash that bell so you don't miss when we drop something fresh. In a shocking turn of events that has sent ripples through Chicago's underground scene, Trap City Rob has been arrested and charged with the murder of BloodHound Lil Jeff. The news has dominated local conversations, and for those familiar with the escalating tensions between Trap City and BloodHound factions, the details are all too grim. The rivalry between Trap City and BloodHound has reached a fever pitch, a clash fueled by a series of provocations and retaliatory actions that have led to tragic losses on both sides. This conflict, which has unfolded over nearly a year, can be traced back to a seemingly minor, yet symbolic incident: the theft of a chain belonging to Vale, a prominent member of the BloodHound crew. What began as a petty theft quickly escalated into a deadly feud, with violence erupting and lives being lost in the wake of pride and territorial disputes. The initial incident involved Lil Jeff, who not only took Vale's chain but then returned to his crew with a bold claim that he had lost it. This act of defiance was not merely a theft. It was a public affront to BloodHound's honor, a challenge that could not go unanswered. As the situation unfolded, the air became thick with animosity, and both groups began to navigate a dangerous landscape where any misstep could lead to dire consequences. The ramifications of this conflict have been devastating. Just recently, Vale's sister was killed, an act that has sent shockwaves through the community and intensified the grief and anger felt by those affiliated with BloodHound. The murder struck at the very heart of their faction, leaving members reeling from the loss of an innocent life caught in the crossfire of a feud that many now see as senseless and tragic. In this turbulent environment, Trap City Rob has emerged as a central figure. His involvement has been both scrutinized and sensationalized, drawing attention to the larger implications of gang culture in Seattle. As tensions simmer and the stakes rise, the conflict serves as a reminder of the fragile nature of loyalty and the high cost of retribution. The feud truly ignited when Lil Jeff, emboldened by a sense of invincibility and loyalty to his crew, openly took Vale's chain, a bold move that set the stage for an explosive conflict. Instead of trying to resolve the situation discreetly, Lil Jeff flaunted his victory and returned to the Trap City fold, claiming he had lost the chain while mocking Vale and his crew. This act of bravado was not just about the chain. It was a statement, an assertion of dominance over BloodHound that could not be ignored. As the situation spiraled, Lil Jeff began to boast about his involvement in violent acts, escalating the tension further. Videos surfaced of him reveling in his reputation, showcasing his affiliation with Trap City while engaging in confrontations that underscored the depth of the rivalry. He was seen not only as a provocateur, but as a figure who embodied the escalating hostilities between the two factions, perpetuating a cycle of violence that seemed inescapable. These confrontations highlighted not just personal animosities, but broader issues of loyalty and pride within gang culture. The rivalry became a spectacle, with both sides using social media to broadcast their actions and attitudes, further entrenching their positions. The atmosphere grew increasingly charged as individuals took sides, with the stakes rising with each altercation. The grim reality is that this rivalry has claimed lives, shattered families, and left a community grappling with the consequences of its own internal conflicts. As each side digs in their heels, the cycle of violence continues, threatening to engulf more individuals in its wake. The theft of that chain, a seemingly small incident, transformed into a catalyst for tragedy, one that has left an indelible mark on both Trap City and BloodHound, forever altering the lives of those involved. The narrative takes a darker turn as we consider the broader implications of street life and the tragic outcomes of these rivalries. The violence is not just about a stolen chain. It reflects a cycle of retribution and a need for respect that drives individuals to take extreme measures. Rob's defense hinges on the idea of self-defense amidst the chaos, where multiple aggressors were involved, and yet the legal system often views these situations through a different lens. The ramifications of this ongoing feud extend beyond mere gang rivalry. They touch on issues of community, identity, and the harsh realities faced by those in the streets. The loss of life in these ongoing gang rivalries reveals a heartbreaking truth. Violence often erupts over seemingly trivial disputes, and the consequences are devastating. Lil Jeff's death was not merely another statistic. It was a tragic culmination of a bitter feud that reflects the entrenched animosities within certain neighborhoods. His passing, marked by a surge of anger and grief, is a painful reminder of the destructive cycle that grips communities, where revenge begets more revenge and families are torn apart by conflict. The aftermath of such violence leaves behind shattered families and mourning friends who must navigate their grief while grappling with the harsh realities of their environments. The deaths of individuals like Lil Jeff and his brother are felt deeply, reverberating through the streets and social networks that bind these communities together. What should have been moments of remembrance and celebration of life are instead overshadowed by a pervasive atmosphere of fear and loss. Each life taken ignites a fire of resentment, pushing the cycle of violence further along. Just yesterday, another tragedy struck, compounding the grief that has gripped the community: the shooting of Risha, Vale's sister, during a funeral procession. This act of violence, occurring in a sacred space meant for mourning, highlights the indiscriminate nature of gang-related conflicts. In a moment meant for reflection and remembrance, the specter of revenge reared its head, turning a place of solace into a site of further tragedy. Such actions not only deepen the sorrow of those affected, but also serve as a chilling reminder that no one is truly safe from the violence that pervades their neighborhoods. As families gather to grieve, the air is thick with tension and fear. The collective pain experienced by friends and loved ones is compounded by the looming threat of retaliation. The question of who's next hangs in the balance, creating an atmosphere charged with uncertainty and dread. Each funeral becomes a potential flashpoint for renewed violence, where the urge for revenge can lead to further loss, creating an endless cycle that seems impossible to break. In the wake of these tragedies, the community is left to grapple with the fallout. It faces the daunting task of healing while living under the constant shadow of violence. The loss of Risha serves not only as a personal tragedy for her family, but also as a poignant reminder of the broader implications of gang rivalries, how they rip apart the social fabric of neighborhoods and instill fear in their residents. As mourners gather, they are faced with the stark reality that the very act of remembrance can be tainted by the threat of violence, perpetuating a sad cycle that seems to know no end. The question remains: how many more lives must be lost before change can take root? The community's resilience is tested time and again, and the hope for peace feels like a distant dream amidst the chaos. It is a sad reality that highlights the urgent need for dialogue, understanding, and ultimately, a collective effort to break free from the chains of violence that have bound them for too long. Trap City Rob now faces a long and arduous legal battle, and while the specifics of his case are still unfolding, one thing remains clear: Seattle streets are far from peaceful. As the community watches the events unfold, there's a collective yearning for change, a hope that this tragic cycle can be broken, that lives can be saved, and that future generations might find a way to resolve their differences without resorting to violence. Stay tuned for further updates on this developing story, and as always, let us know your thoughts on the situation in the comments. What does this mean for the community, and how can we prevent further tragedies? The conversation continues, and it's time for all of us to take part.